My entitled sister's meltdown over $3.5 million inheritance leads to shocking family secrets. Grandfather's secret was exposed. I never thought my grandfather's antique violin would cause such chaos in our family. At 31, I had just inherited this priceless Stradivarius from my beloved grandfather Richard, a renowned concert violinist who had passed away peacefully at the age of 92. The violin had been in our family for generations, passed down through a line of musicians. Although I wasn't a professional musician like my grandfather, I had studied violin since childhood and played in local orchestras. More importantly, I shared a special bond with my grandfather, who had taught me everything I knew about music. The violin itself was a masterpiece, crafted in 1721 and worth millions. But to me, its value was purely sentimental. It represented countless hours spent practicing with my grandfather, his patient guidance, and the joy we shared through music. When he left it to me in his will, I was moved to tears, knowing how much trust he had placed in me to preserve our family's musical legacy. However, my cousin Amanda, a 35-year-old professional violinist, had other ideas. She had always assumed the violin would be hers, despite never having a particularly close relationship with our grandfather. Amanda performed with a prestigious symphony orchestra and believed that as the professional musician in the family, she was the rightful heir to the instrument. The drama began 3 days after the reading of the will. I was still grieving, trying to process the loss of my grandfather, when Amanda showed up unannounced at my apartment. She had flown in from Chicago, leaving her husband Derek and their 3 children behind, supposedly to check on how I was doing. I should have known something was off when she arrived with a bottle of my favorite wine and a forced smile. The evening started pleasantly enough, with us sharing memories of our grandfather. But after her second glass of wine, Amanda's true intentions became clear. She began talking about how the violin would be wasted on an amateur like me, how it deserved to be played on grand stages around the world. She even suggested that our grandfather must have been confused when he made his will, implying that his age had affected his judgment. I was stunned by her audacity. Our grandfather had been sharp as a tack until the very end, and we both knew it. When I firmly told her that I intended to honor his wishes and keep the violin, she completely lost her composure. The mask of civility dropped, revealing the entitled, jealous person beneath. She accused me of manipulating our grandfather, of playing the perfect grandchild, just to get my hands on the violin. It was ridiculous. I had spent every Sunday afternoon with him for the past decade because I genuinely enjoyed his company, not because I was plotting to inherit his possessions. What happened next took me completely by surprise. Amanda stood up, walked over to where the violin case was displayed on my bookshelf, and attempted to take it. I jumped up to stop her, and in the ensuing struggle, she knocked over a vase of flowers. As water spread across my hardwood floors, she slipped and fell, twisting her ankle. Instead of being embarrassed by her behavior, she threatened to sue me for her injury. I called my brother Michael to come over immediately. He arrived just in time to witness Amanda calling our entire extended family, spinning a tale about how I had pushed her and deliberately tried to hurt her when she just wanted to look at the violin. It was surreal watching her cry crocodile tears into her phone, playing the victim when she had just tried to steal a priceless family heirloom. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Amanda's version of events spread through the family like wildfire. My social media was flooded with angry messages from relatives taking her side. My Aunt Patricia, Amanda's mother, called me daily, alternating between guilt-tripping and threats of legal action. Even my own mother, though she stood by me, suggested that perhaps I should loan the violin to Amanda for a while to keep the peace. But then something unexpected happened. Derek, Amanda's husband, reached out to me privately. He apologized for his wife's behavior and shared some troubling information. Apparently, Amanda had been struggling professionally. Despite her position in the symphony, she had been passed over for several solo opportunities. She had convinced herself that having my grandfather's famous violin would somehow revive her career. Derek confided that she had even taken out a secret loan, planning to buy the violin from me when she failed to inherit it. The situation took another dramatic turn when Amanda announced she was pregnant with her 4th child. She used this news to further her campaign, posting on social media about how stress from family betrayal was affecting her pregnancy. She even claimed that our grandfather had promised her the violin when this baby was born, as he knew she'd want to play it for his newest great-grandchild. It was a complete fabrication, but some family members ate it up. I might have continued to weather this storm indefinitely, but then Amanda crossed a line that changed everything. She started showing up at my local orchestra rehearsals, telling my fellow musicians about how I had stolen her inheritance. When she approached my conductor with concerns about my ability to properly care for such a valuable instrument, I realized I needed to take action. I hired a lawyer and had a cease and desist letter sent to Amanda. I also gathered evidence of her harassment, including screenshots of her social media posts and recordings of her increasingly unhinged voicemails. My lawyer advised me to document everything in case we needed to file for a restraining order. The cease and desist letter seemed to only fuel Amanda's obsession. She began claiming that the violin wasn't even the real Stradivarius, that I must have switched it with a copy. She demanded that it be professionally authenticated, offering to pay for the appraisal herself. What she didn't know was that I had already had it authenticated as part of the insurance process, but I wasn't about to share that information with her. Meanwhile, other family secrets began to surface. Derek revealed that Amanda had been lying about their financial situation for years. While she portrayed an image of success on social media, they were actually drowning in debt due to her excessive spending on designer clothes and luxury items. She had been counting on selling the violin to solve their financial problems, which explained her desperate behavior. The situation reached a breaking point at my cousin Sarah's wedding 3 months later. Amanda had been uncharacteristically quiet for a few weeks, and I foolishly thought perhaps she had finally accepted reality. I should have known better. In the middle of the reception, she clinked her glass as if to make a toast. Instead of congratulating the bride and groom, she launched into a tearful speech about family loyalty and betrayal, clearly directed at me. She then announced that she was starting a legal fund to recover our grandfather's legacy, and that she'd be grateful for any contributions. The room fell silent. Sarah, who had previously stayed neutral in the conflict, was furious that Amanda had hijacked her wedding to pursue her vendetta. Even Amanda's staunchest supporters looked uncomfortable. Derek got up and practically dragged Amanda out of the reception, apologizing profusely to Sarah and her new husband. That night, I received an unexpected call from my Aunt Patricia. The wedding incident had finally opened her eyes to how far her daughter had gone. She apologized for taking Amanda's side and admitted that she had enabled her daughter's sense of entitlement throughout her life. It was a breakthrough moment, but it came at a cost. Amanda felt betrayed by her mother's defection and stopped speaking to her. As weeks turned into months, Amanda's behavior became increasingly erratic. She started attending every musical event where I performed, sitting in the front row and staring at me intensely. She posted rambling late-night Facebook messages analyzing every interaction she'd ever had with our grandfather, trying to prove that he had wanted her to have the violin. She even contacted the music magazines that had covered our grandfather's career, pitching stories about family discord over his legacy. Then came the most shocking twist of all. Derek called me in tears one evening. He had discovered that Amanda had been secretly meeting with a notorious black market art dealer, apparently exploring ways to recover the violin. She had convinced herself that if she couldn't have it legally, she would find other means. Derek was terrified that she would do something desperate and end up in legal trouble. This information forced me to take serious action. I immediately moved the violin to a secure storage facility and installed a comprehensive security system in my apartment. I also finally filed for that restraining order, using the mountain of evidence I had collected over the past months. The restraining order hearing was one of the hardest days of my life. Sitting in that courtroom, watching Amanda paint herself as the victim while her husband and children sat behind me instead of her, I felt only sadness. This wasn't what our grandfather would have wanted. His violin, which had brought so much joy and beauty into the world, had become a source of such ugliness and pain. Surprisingly, it was during this dark moment that healing began. After the judge granted the restraining order, Derek approached me with their oldest child, 12-year-old Sophie. Through tears, Sophie told me how much she missed our family gatherings and asked if she could start taking violin lessons with me. She had inherited our grandfather's musical talent, but had been afraid to pursue it because of all the drama. That conversation with Sophie sparked an idea. With Derek's blessing, I established a music education foundation in our grandfather's name. The foundation would provide violin lessons to underprivileged children, with the Stradivarius making appearances at special recitals. It was a way to honor our grandfather's legacy while ensuring the violin brought joy to a new generation of musicians. The foundation became a catalyst for family reconciliation. Many relatives who had sided with Amanda began to see that I was honoring our grandfather's memory in my own way. Even Aunt Patricia got involved, helping to organize the foundation's first benefit concert. Amanda, however, remained unchanged. When she heard about the foundation, she tried to position herself as its rightful director, claiming that as a professional musician, she should be in charge. When that failed, she began spreading rumors that I was profiting from our grandfather's name. But her accusations fell flat. The foundation's books were transparent, and everyone could see that every penny went to music education. As I write this, a year has passed since our grandfather's death. The foundation is thriving, having already provided lessons to dozens of children who otherwise couldn't afford them. Sophie has blossomed into a talented young violinist, reminding me so much of our grandfather and her dedication and joy in music. Derek has filed for divorce and custody of their children, using Amanda's obsessive behavior and financial deceptions as evidence. Amanda herself has moved back in with Aunt Patricia, who is trying to get her daughter into therapy. She still occasionally posts about the violin on social media, but most people now ignore her rants. The professional consequences of her actions have finally caught up with her. Her erratic behavior led to her dismissal from the symphony, though she tells everyone she quit to focus on her legal battle. Looking back, I realized that this was never really about the violin. It was about entitlement, jealousy, and the destructive power of unchecked obsession. But it was also about family, legacy, and finding ways to honor both while staying true to oneself. Every time I play my grandfather's violin for the foundation students, I feel his presence and know that, despite all the drama, his gift is exactly where it was meant to be. The story isn't over. Family dynamics never really are, but I've found peace with my role in it. The violin that caused so much strife has become a tool for healing and education, touching more lives than it ever could have in Amanda's hands. And in the end, isn't that what a legacy is truly about? Update. 6 months have passed since I last wrote about the violin situation, and there have been several significant developments. The most shocking came 3 weeks ago when Derek discovered that Amanda had been secretly recording my foundation's student recitals and digitally editing the videos to make it appear as though the children were playing poorly. She had been sending these doctored videos to local music schools and parents, trying to discredit the foundation's work. This discovery led to another legal battle, but this time, the family was united against Amanda's behavior. Even her children, especially Sophie, were devastated by their mother's actions. Sophie had been thriving in her violin studies and was preparing for her first solo recital when she learned what her mother had done. The foundation, meanwhile, has expanded beyond our initial expectations. We recently received a grant to establish a scholarship program for promising young musicians. In a touching gesture, several of my grandfather's former students have volunteered to teach master classes. The violin that Amanda so desperately wanted for herself has now helped launch the careers of 3 young violinists who would never have had the opportunity otherwise. As for Amanda, she finally agreed to seek professional help after Aunt Patricia gave her an ultimatum: either get treatment or move out. The road to recovery will be long, but for the first time, there's hope that she might eventually understand that some legacies are about more than mere possession. They're about continuing the spirit of what made them special in the first place. Last week, I played my grandfather's violin at a benefit concert for the foundation. As I performed one of his favorite pieces, I caught sight of Sophie in the audience, her eyes closed, swaying slightly to the music, just as our grandfather used to do. In that moment, I knew that despite all the drama and pain, his true legacy lived on, not in the instrument itself, but in the love of music he instilled in generations to come. Update 2. The situation has taken several unexpected turns in the past month. It started when I received an anonymous email containing scanned pages from what appeared to be my grandfather's personal journal. The entries, dated just months before his death, expressed doubt about leaving the violin to me and mentioned promises made to Amanda. My heart sank as I read them, but something felt off about the handwriting. I hired a forensic document expert who confirmed my suspicions. The journal entries were clever forgeries. The investigation into the forged journal led to a startling discovery. The emails had been traced back to a public library computer, and security footage revealed not Amanda, but Derek's new girlfriend, Rachel, was behind them. It turned out that Rachel, a skilled calligrapher, had been helping Amanda in exchange for promises of future payments from the violin's eventual sale. This revelation devastated Derek, who had been planning to propose to Rachel, unaware of her involvement in his ex-wife's schemes. But the biggest shock came during a routine insurance inspection of the violin. The appraiser noticed something unusual about the instrument's interior that had been missed in previous examinations. Hidden within a nearly invisible compartment was a microfilm containing what appeared to be classified documents from World War II. This discovery drew the attention of historical researchers and even government agencies. It seems my grandfather, who had performed across Europe during the war, had played a role in an underground resistance movement, using the violin to transport sensitive information. This revelation added a whole new dimension to our family legacy. Amanda, predictably, tried to use this discovery to support her claim to the violin, arguing that as a professional musician, she was better suited to handle an instrument of such historical significance. However, her efforts backfired when researchers found letters indicating that our grandfather had specifically chosen me as heir because I shared his interest in history and would appreciate the violin's full significance, not just its musical value. The Historical Society has offered to feature the violin in a special exhibition about musicians in the resistance movement. After much consideration, I agreed, on the condition that it would still be available for the Foundation's important performances. The exhibition has brought unexpected attention to our foundation, leading to increased donations and support for our music education programs. Meanwhile, Sophie has shown remarkable progress in her violin studies. During a recent masterclass, one of my grandfather's former students remarked on how much her playing style resembled our grandfather's. This comment triggered another meltdown from Amanda, who attended the class against the restraining order. Her outburst was captured on video and quickly went viral in the local music community, finally destroying what remained of her professional reputation. The stress of these events has taken its toll on Amanda's health, leading to her hospitalization for anxiety and depression. While receiving treatment, she revealed to her therapist that her obsession with the violin stemmed from a childhood incident where our grandfather had gently criticized her playing. She had spent years trying to prove herself worthy of his approval, twisting the violin inheritance into a symbol of validation she never felt she received. Aunt Patricia, hoping to help her daughter heal, shared with me a box of old family videos she had recently discovered. Among them was footage of our grandfather giving Amanda her first violin lesson. His pride and affection for her were obvious, and the way he patiently guided her small hands on the instrument showed nothing but love. I decided to have this video digitally restored and shared it with Amanda's therapist, who used it in their sessions to help Amanda confront the origins of her insecurities. The foundation has continued to grow, and we recently launched a new initiative inspired by our grandfather's wartime experiences. Beyond teaching music, we now include lessons about the historical significance of musicians in times of social change. Sophie, showing wisdom beyond her years, suggested we create a scholarship specifically for young musicians from conflict zones, naming it after our grandfather. As I write this, I'm preparing for perhaps the most significant performance of my life. The Historical Society has organized a special concert where I'll play our grandfather's violin alongside a newly discovered piece he composed during the war. The composition, found among the microfilm documents, tells the story of resistance and hope through music. Amanda has been invited to attend, and her therapist thinks she's finally ready to face this chapter of our family history with a healthier perspective. The violin, which once threatened to tear our family apart, has become a bridge not just to our past, but to a future none of us could have imagined. Its legacy now extends far beyond our family, touching lives across generations and continents. As I practice grandfather's wartime composition, I feel closer to him than ever, understanding now that he chose me not just to play his violin, but to uncover and share its full story with the world. Update 3. The Historical Society concert proved to be even more momentous than anyone could have anticipated. Just hours before the performance, I received an urgent call from a British historian who had been researching the wartime resistance networks. He had discovered that the microfilm hidden in the violin contained not just military intelligence, but a map leading to a cache of artwork stolen by the Nazis. The pieces had been hidden away by resistance members, including my grandfather, with the intention of returning them to their rightful owners after the war. The revelation threw me into a moral dilemma. The concert was meant to honor my grandfather's musical legacy, but now I held information that could help restore priceless cultural artifacts to families who had lost everything in the war. After consulting with the Historical Society and my lawyer, I decided to make an announcement at the concert. The news created an international sensation. Art historians, government agencies, and descendants of Holocaust survivors all became invested in the violin story. Among them was an elderly woman named Eva Rothschild, who recognized my grandfather from a photograph. She revealed that he had helped her family escape Europe when she was a child, smuggling documents inside his violin case during concert tours. The moment she shared her story during the concert's intermission, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. But the biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. Amanda, who had been silently watching the proceedings, suddenly stood up and made her way to the stage. Instead of causing a scene as everyone feared, she pulled out a small, worn leather diary, our grandfather's actual journal, which he had kept hidden for years out of spite. The journal detailed not only his wartime activities, but also contained letters, photographs, and most surprisingly, sheets of music written in code that corresponded to resistance messages. The discovery of the real journal made the international news coverage even more intense. Our small family foundation was suddenly thrust into the global spotlight. Journalists camped outside my apartment, documentary filmmakers requested interviews, and Hollywood producers began calling with movie rights offers. The violin, already priceless for its musical significance, had become a vital piece of world history. However, with this attention came new challenges. A group claiming to be descendants of the violin's original pre-war owner emerged, demanding its return. Their legal claim forced us to delve deeper into the instrument's provenance, leading to the discovery that the violin had indeed been sold under duress during the Nazi regime. The evidence suggested that my grandfather had actually purchased it after the war specifically to keep it safe until its rightful owners could be found. This revelation shook our family to its core. Amanda, who had been making progress in therapy, initially saw it as vindication. If the violin wasn't rightfully ours to begin with, then her claim to it was no worse than mine. But as we dug deeper into our grandfather's papers, we found evidence that he had spent years trying to trace the original owners, only to discover they hadn't survived the war. His will included a provision that if the rightful heirs were ever found, the violin should be returned with the condition that it be used to continue teaching young musicians. The situation took another unexpected turn when Sophie, who had been quietly researching on her own, made a startling connection. The claiming family's documentation contained inconsistencies that pointed to a sophisticated fraud attempt. Working with historical experts, she helped expose an international ring of art thieves who had been using Holocaust restitution claims to acquire valuable instruments. This discovery led to a deeper bond between Sophie and me, but created new tension with Amanda. Unable to cope with her daughter's role in exposing the fraud, Amanda retreated into herself, missing important performances and family events. It wasn't until Eva Rothschild's granddaughter, a renowned violinist herself, reached out to Amanda that things began to change. Eva's granddaughter shared stories of how the resistance network of musicians had saved countless lives, using their art as a cover for their heroism. She helped Amanda understand that our grandfather's legacy wasn't just about the violin or even the music. It was about using one's talents in service of something greater than oneself. Meanwhile, the Historical Society's research team made another breakthrough. Hidden within the violin's bow was a hollowed-out section containing a microfiche with lists of artwork locations and their rightful owners. This discovery led to the recovery of several lost masterpieces and helped numerous families reclaim their heritage. The foundation has now expanded its mission to include preserving and sharing the stories of musicians who used their art to resist tyranny. We've established a partnership with Holocaust museums worldwide, creating educational programs that combine music education with historical awareness. Sophie, showing remarkable maturity, has become one of our most effective young ambassadors, sharing our grandfather's story with students her age. In an ironic twist, Amanda's professional career has taken an unexpected turn. Her experience with the Foundation's historical work led to an offer to curate a special exhibition on music in the resistance movement. For the first time in years, she's found purpose in something beyond her own ambitions. She's even started teaching again, this time focusing on helping traumatized refugee children heal through music. The violin itself has become more than just an instrument or a family heirloom. It's a symbol of hope and resistance, a reminder that art can be a powerful force for justice. As I prepare for our upcoming international tour, where we'll be performing our grandfather's decoded resistance compositions in cities across Europe, I can't help but marvel at how this story has unfolded. Derek, who has maintained a supportive presence throughout these developments, recently shared something that put everything in perspective. He had found an old recording of our grandfather giving an interview shortly before his death. In it, he spoke about how music had the power to carry truth through dark times, and how sometimes the most important notes were the ones played in silence. At the time, nobody understood what he meant. Now, the hidden messages in his violin stand as testimony to those words. The Foundation's work has now expanded to include a digital archive of musicians' resistance stories from conflicts around the world. We've discovered that our grandfather's violin was just one of many instruments that played dual roles during the war, and each has its own remarkable story. Sophie has started documenting these tales for a book she hopes to publish when she's older, ensuring that these acts of courage won't be forgotten. Final update. 5 years have passed since the day Amanda first demanded grandfather's violin, and life has come full circle in ways none of us could have imagined. Our European tour became a journey of healing and discovery, performing in the very venues where our grandfather had once played his coded resistance pieces. In Vienna, we even found the hidden room where he had stored rescued artworks, still containing fragments of sheet music used to send messages to allies. The most profound moment came in Prague, where we met an entire family that had escaped the Nazi regime thanks to our grandfather's musical resistance network. Their grandmother, now in her 90s, recalled how he had hidden their documents inside his violin case and created a distraction during a checkpoint inspection by deliberately playing a wrong note, something completely out of character for him, giving others time to destroy incriminating evidence. Amanda's transformation has been remarkable. The woman who once tried to steal my violin now runs the Foundation's Historical Research Department. Her expertise in classical music has proved invaluable in decoding more musical messages hidden in war-era compositions. She's found her true calling in preserving this legacy, and our relationship has slowly healed. Last month, she even asked me to play the violin at her small, intimate wedding to James, a Holocaust museum curator she met through her work. Sophie, now 17, has blossomed into an accomplished violinist in her own right. She recently premiered an original composition inspired by the stories we've uncovered, titled The Silent Symphony. The piece incorporates actual decoded resistance messages as musical themes. She's been offered a full scholarship to Juilliard but plans to study both music and history, wanting to continue the work of documenting and preserving musicians' roles in resistance movements. Derek found happiness too, marrying a kind-hearted music therapist who works with our Foundation's trauma recovery program. Their blended family has brought new joy to all our lives. Even Aunt Patricia has found a new purpose, leading our community outreach programs and sharing her own journey of enabling and then confronting toxic behavior. The violin itself has been officially recognized as a historical artifact of international importance. Through a carefully negotiated agreement, it splits its time between performances, education, and museum exhibition. When not being played, it rests in a special display case that tells not just its own story, but the larger narrative of how music and musicians have fought against oppression throughout history. Our grandfather's legacy has grown far beyond anything we could have envisioned. The Foundation now supports musicians in current conflict zones, providing both instruments and safe passage to those who need it. We've even established a secure communication network for activists and artists in authoritarian states, inspired by the musical coding systems used during World War II. Last week, I discovered one final secret in grandfather's violin. During a routine maintenance check, the luthier found a tiny note tucked into a previously unnoticed crevice. Written in our grandfather's distinctive hand were the words, "The music plays on in all of us. The greatest compositions are the lives we touch." Along with it was a small key, which perfectly fit the lock of a safety deposit box we didn't know existed. Inside the box, we found his last unplayed composition, a piece titled Future Notes, with instructions that it should only be performed when the family had found harmony again. Tomorrow night, for the first time, Amanda and I will perform it together at Sophie's graduation recital, with 3 generations of our family in attendance. The violin that once divided us will finally play the piece it has held in silence for so long. a testament to the power of music to heal, unite, and transcend. Our grandfather would be proud to see us now, not because we preserved his violin, but because we discovered its true purpose. It was never meant to be a mere possession to fight over, but a key to unlock stories that needed to be told, truths that needed to be revealed, and wounds that needed to heal. In the end, the violin's greatest value wasn't in its priceless wood and strings, but in its power to teach us that the most important inheritance isn't what we own, but what we choose to do with what we're given. As I write these final words, I can hear Sophie practicing in the next room, her notes blending with the echoes of all those who played this violin before her. The music plays on, carrying with it the stories of courage, resistance, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Not just our own, but the larger human family that our grandfather fought so hard to protect. And in that endless melody, I finally understand that some legacies aren't meant to be possessed at all, but passed on, note by note, generation by generation, in an eternal symphony of hope. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.